All right.
Yes, we're back again with the next episode
Dr. Dre.
of the.
Episode 4. Welcome back to the Freecom podcast. This episode will be mainly about stress.
Stress.
Last episode, we left off with burnout. And that's why we start this episode with stress, because it's very related. And I think I got some reactions on that.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not a lot of people that do not agree or missed the point or misunderstood me. Of course, it's not my intention to spread something which makes people feel bad, but I do want to give some insights to make people think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think burnout is a very difficult thing, and it's often made very simple and labeled as, all right, you've burnout,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
While I think there's a lot of different kinds of burnout, of course, burnout does exist as a physical reaction, but then still, I think not everyone can get it, or better said, you can find ways to
Yes.
prevent
true.
this. So this episode will be about stress, and I think stress is the main reason why people get burnout. Having a prolonged state of high stress,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's basically burnout. So first question.
Wait. I also want to say something about burnout.
All right.
Because I am that person that it's never diagnosed it, but I was thinking that I have it, but I never. I always keep going and always believing that there was a way to find to find
Solution.
my way, to find a solution. And burnout is basically a feeling of total emptiness of energy. You are empty, you have no energy at all, and you can it's maybe physical, that you the most intense part that I've known of what I heard is that you cannot even get out of your bed, no energy. Or mentally, that you just black out, you cannot think anymore, just burnt out, you are out of
Mm-hmm.
energy,
Out of fuel.
or emotional, that you constantly cannot control your own emotion. The wall is gone, you cannot control it anymore because you are burnt out. And most of the time this happens when you keep pushing yourself too far, like that you have the comfort zone, that's there is everything okay, nothing is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, if you want to grow, if you want to stretch, you have to stretch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stretch yourself, your body, your mind, your emotions are thinking like, whoa, what's happening? But that's the moment of growth. And then you got another line, it's the stress zone, and
Mhm.
that's more your peak. And many people push themselves too far, too long in this zone of stress.
Yeah.
And
So-
then, if you do this too long, you will get a burnout.
Yeah, so what I said, prolonged state of high stress.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
I think, of course, I'm not an expert on this object, but what I think is that this often happens to people that do something. They do something that's not their path or
Mhm,
passion,
mhm.
or something they don't do because they want to do it, more
Mhm.
because they have to do it,
Yes.
and they are getting a lot of stress from that, and that causes burnout. I think if you get a lot of stress, like not like prolonged stress, but like in how many times you feel stressed,
Mm-hmm.
but you do it for a good reason and you do have a good why, then you won't get burnout because your why sort of fuels
Yes, yes,
fuels
yes,
this.
yes.
So you have like an unlimited source of fuel because you do something that is aligned with what you have to do
Mm-hmm.
on a bigger purpose. And I think if there's a mismatch between that and you have high stress from something that's not your path, not your purpose, not your why, then you get the burnout.
Indeed. A great example is that if you have a bad childhood, or your father wasn't present, never present, and you just want to prove yourself at many different ways, and it's very stressful because you don't get attention, and you are doing this year over and over and over until it become a pattern, and people don't even know that they are doing that, and then it could be very stressful because you try to get acknowledgement
Mm-hmm.
from your father, but every person, because that is your way of doing things, and you are familiar with failing at getting acknowledgement, and that is something that is just going and going and going, for
I have
example.
a fun question for you. Do you think if your reason,
Mhm.
the reason why you're doing it is egocentrical, you will always get a burnout? If your why is only for yourself, only for your ego, do you think eventually you'll get burnout?
Eventually, I guess, it not necessary, but more depression. Like you will not be satisfied at the end.
But isn't depression also a form of burnout? Because when I shared something on my Instagram about burnout, someone reacted to that and said burnout is basically depression. So
No, I'm
that's
not.
probably their way of
Yes,
experiencing
yes, yes,
burnout.
yes, yes, indeed. I'm not agree with that, but depression is can be a part of that can lead until
Yeah,
a burnout.
yeah. Because you can be depressed and still work because you
Yes,
maybe still have some fuel, and then you get the burnout.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. So there are many
So
many ways to
and
get
I think
burnout.
depression is a good sign that you need to stop
Yes,
before
yes,
you get the
indeed,
burnout.
indeed. So, and what I find very inspiring about your um, way of thinking, your beliefs are strong, because when you don't believe it, it doesn't exist in your world of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and that is also an important part. So if you don't believe that you can be that you can be broken, then you will always find a way to keep going. And also what you said about meditation,
Mm-hmm.
that you, when you learn how to deal with stress, and when you can see the stress is something good, but don't overdo it, so that you can it's like a bar that is raising and decreasing,
Yeah.
raising and
Because you can
decreasing.
use stress as a motivator as well.
Indeed.
If you're using it well. But I do want to say, of course, I believe that burnout exists, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I can get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference. I do
Yes.
believe, like the way we just explained how burnout works, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that exists, and I believe people can have this.
Yes.
But I believe I can't have this, partly because I meditate, but also because I have a strong why, and I think
Mm-hmm.
my goals are bigger than my ego, and
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe a bit of a vague explanation, but because I have a goal and because I have a purpose, a good why, I think I can always get motivation from that. And when I'm experiencing a lot of stress, which I'm not, like I barely ever have stress,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's because of meditation. But let's get into the
Yes.
first question, which is a very basic question: how to deal with stress from work, any kind of work, entrepreneur or not.
I think it's
Maybe it's just
important.
like how to deal with stress in general.
Indeed. I think it's important to define what is that stress and when do you experience stress. So I think the first thing that is coming up in my mind is um, awareness. Be aware of when you have it. When is it in your body? So because that's the problem, that people don't know that they are pushing themselves too far. So breathe in and breathe out. It's very important, and be aware of your thoughts and your emotions, and reflection at the begin of at the end of the day, and at the beginning, just checking in, and then you can only deal with something that you are aware of. So that's the first step.
I think some people maybe have stress while they don't know this, but I think a lot of people do know they have stress, so they are to some degree aware of it. I think what comes first to my mind is a lot of people try to suppress it and look for distractions. So they have stress, but sort of don't want to acknowledge it to themselves, and they watch Netflix. Go, just do something else that distracts the mind from the stress. Because if you are, well, it's interesting, if you're watching a movie or a series on Netflix, you probably still experience stress.
Indeed.
Maybe even from the movie, which is also interesting. But yeah, do something and then be in that distraction so you cannot think about the stress. I
But
think
the stress still stays.
yeah, and I think that's a very big problem, and that is a very big cause of burnout, because that way your body stays in that high stress state, but you sort of found a way to not deal with it, and you are just building it up, and then you get to burnout. I think that's usually what happens. I think the distractions are actually the problem.
Yes, instead of dealing with it.
Yeah.
So the next question is, all right, so I am aware of it. How to deal with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And even like, I think even a lot of people that are not necessarily aware of it, but they just built the habit of distraction. So because they already had the distraction before they got the stress, they don't know how much stress they actually have.
Yes, true.
So for example, you grow up watching movies every night, or for me personally, I watched TV with my mom every night, so I already sort of built a habit of distracting myself during the evening, which is usually the part when you don't go to school or don't have to work, which often causes distress. And then you already built this habit, and then you go to work, build a lot of stress at work, but you already have the habit of distraction. So in the evening, you have the distraction, and then you see what's happening.
Yes,
it's building
you're
up.
building a destructive habit eventually.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's the main problem. I think, and then how to deal with it is obviously by quitting the distractions and being honest with yourself that you have a lot of stress and you probably don't have the life that you want to have, which causes you this stress, or you don't have the job that you want to have, or maybe you do have the job that you want to have, but it's still causing you a lot of stress. This can also be. But whatever the reason is, just trying to find the cause of the stress and actually fixing it, instead of just thinking, it's just the way it is. I'll just find another distraction.
Yes, and when another thing, what's very important, and many people find that very hard to do, is export it. The problem, the issue, the things, the emotions, export it. And what I mean with that is, when you get a feeling or thoughts inside of you, write it down or talk with somebody who just listen to it. And a very important part that's what I think is, um, don't try to fix it immediately. Just export it, or just let's find somebody who just listen to it, because that can be that can give you a relief, a release of that stress, and it literally will lower the pressure of it, and then after that you got space, and within this space you can maybe you can find your own solutions, and when you find those solutions yourself, then it's very, very useful, valuable, because that is the moment of growth.
Mm-hmm. So I think like the first step is sort of acknowledging it and doing something with it, like start to take action, solving your stress, and then indeed like whatever way of being truthful to yourself, like exporting it or just taking the time for yourself to fix it, and then you'll come up with a solution, and that lowers the pressure. And I think like if you're exporting it, for example, you can also put things into perspective.
Yes.
So you can sort of be aware of the fact that you have a lot of stress, but then also because you're aware of it, you can sort of think about it in a different way now. Like you can connect a different feeling to what is happening. Instead of stress, you can now choose to, and I think this is where meditation comes in, because this is how you train your mind to do these things. You can sort of acknowledge that you have this stress, or acknowledge the cause, but then you don't have to like acknowledging the cause and then choosing that stress is not the thing that's coming from this, but something else, which maybe sounds a little bit weird, but like the first thing is, all right, let's just give an example. All right, I have a lot of stress because I have to do a lot of work, and I have too many deadlines, for example. But then stress is sort of what comes from this. But now that you are aware of it, you can choose that even though you still have this work and you still have these deadlines, you do not have to have the stress because you are aware of it. So now every time that you do have the stress, you're aware of what is happening, and that, I think, that is going to help you lower the pressure, like you said, and lower the stress, and then you can like solve it like by just getting a different job or whatever. But I think just by acknowledging it and being aware of it, that's already the first step to sort of lower this stress.
Yes.
And then if it's still too much, then you have to think about, right, how can I change my environment to have less stress? But I think you don't necessarily need to change your environment to have less stress, because a lot of CEOs and a lot of people that actually have a lot more responsibility than you have, they don't have this stress. While the pressure on them is higher, they have a lower stress. And then there can only be one difference, and that's just how they go about the stress.
And it's also training, and what you are familiar with, because some people live too long in this zone of comfort, and when something happened, it's just like, whoa, what is this? I can do this, and they have limiting beliefs, or they are not familiar with it. And when you train yourself and come back to the stretch zone, and then we again back, then you train yourself.
I think we almost made a step-by-step plan here. Acknowledge it, be aware of it, export it, and then put it in perspective, or sort of use this awareness to not have the stress. And one more thing that I sometimes use to not have stress, even when something happens. For example, like this week, something happened in my business that's like sort of a roadblock, something that we have to overcome. It's just annoying and can lead to problems. It's not a problem yet, but it can be
Mm-hmm.
for some people a reason to have a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing that I sort of teach myself also through meditation is to immediately give a reaction. All right, is this going to kill me?
Mm-hmm.
No. So no need to be stressed. And this also goes back to like your instincts and your like brain from the past. Like if there's a reason to be scared for your life, then you should be stressed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're not in danger, not in real danger, you can still be stressed, but you don't need to have the same level of stress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
my reaction, like, is this going to kill me? No. All right, not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We'll fix it.
Yes, I want to say something about that. That's a good one, and but it's important to know why you ask yourself this question, because maybe death is one of the biggest fears that people can have. So I don't want to die.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to die? I don't want to die. So when somebody's with a gun uh, by my head, I think I will feel a little stress in my body. I think so. But for people, sometimes um, other things can be as stressful for them as dying,
Yeah.
like feeling alone. That is one of the basic fear that people have, that they are alone and are not a part of a group anymore, or there are a few other things that are your biggest fear, and you always have to ask yourself, all right, uh, what is happening? Is it really that serious? Or
Yeah, but that's I think that's like sort of the same as asking yourself, is
yes,
this going to kill me? Because
yes, yes.
if it's not going to kill me, then I have time to calm down and think about a
Mm-hmm,
solution,
mm-hmm,
and things will be all right. Because
mm-hmm,
things will always be all right. I think, like the simple saying like time heals. I think that's very true. I
mm-hmm,
think time heals anything. As
mm-hmm,
long as there's time, problems will be solved, and eventually everything will be better.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not 100% sure this is like a truth, but in my life, and I
Yes.
think for a lot of people, if you reflect on your life, time healed everything, and eventually you only got out better.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
as long as it doesn't kill you right now and you have time, then there's no reason to
mm-hmm.
stress.
Yes, yes. I also agree with this. I only try to empathize with people who are deep in this stress, who doesn't got this awareness,
Mm-hmm.
because when I remember a few years ago, I had to make a decision to go to I don't know, to the left or to the right, but I knew that I would lose something,
Mm-hmm.
whatever I choose, and it was so important for me that I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose it, and I feel so much stress, and I couldn't take a decision. And then I think that if somebody say, "Are you going to die?" I don't know that if it would help at that moment when you are deep
Mm-hmm.
in this moment.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. And maybe of course it's not going to help for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Even for people that are not like that deep, what I'm saying here might still not resonate with them.
Yes, indeed.
And I think everyone needs to find their own trigger. And it's not really about like I just explained what helps me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I
mm-hmm.
think what's more important, what you can take from this, is find your own trigger.
Yes, yes,
Find
true.
like it's not about me telling myself, all right, am I going to die, and that lowering my stress.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not the point. What the point is, you being able to be aware immediately as soon as you have a stress response and counter this with something that you do believe and lowers your stress.
Yes,
I think
indeed.
that's what it's about. And that's not something that you immediately have. That's something that you have to train.
Yes,
and
indeed.
that's in my opinion through meditation. Not necessarily, but I think it's going to help a lot. But what's
Yes.
important is to have this trigger, and for some people that are watching this, it's the question, asking yourself, am I going to die? And putting it into perspective that way is a way
Yes.
to deal with it. For other people, there's not a way to put it in perspective and calm themselves down. But having this trigger, I think that's
Yes,
important.
True,
I think that's something everyone can have, but it requires maybe some mind training or just some time to
Indeed, but I think we can summarize it to ask yourself good questions, or if everything that you are thinking or feeling, if it's true. Is it true what you are thinking or what you are saying to yourself? Is it really true? That's the head question.
Yeah, and then stress is often, I think, some way of fear of the future. Usually, not necessarily. Stress can also be caused by something that happened in the past. It's just a response, but I think often it's fear of the future, which didn't even happen yet. So you're stressing about something that's not even here.
Yes.
And those are the things that you don't have to stress about. And even things that happened in the past that's causing you a lot of stress now, often are also things you don't have to stress about. All right, so acknowledging it, being aware, exporting it, finding a trigger, countering it. I think we created a step-by-step plan here.
Yes, great.
All right. I think we should end it here and just continue in the next episode.
Yes, and if you have questions about mindset, just ask them and we can talk about it.
We have a special channel on Discord where you can ask questions related to mindset, and we will cover those in one of the next episodes. And of course, you can always ask any of us on Instagram or here in the comments.
Yes.
All right. Thanks
See
for
you
watching.
next time.